Watch Robbery. I needed to make this reaction video because people are literally coming out there and saying that Felder won that fight 3 rounds to 2. What are you watching? Dan Hooker won that fight 3 rounds to 2. People, again, much like with Darren Till versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, are attaching the location of the fight to add a bias on top of them. I called out a guy in the middle of the stream saying that Felder needs to KO him because if it goes to the judges, he isn't getting it. You have a preconceived notion that because a guy is in his hometown, he immediately is going to get the decision win. Dan Hooker did not get gifted a decision win by his hometown. He won that fight 3 rounds to 2, and here's why. In the first round, unanimous, we're all agreeing, right? Dan Hooker won the first round, outstruck Paul Felder. Paul Felder, Dan Hooker's second round was close. It was close. Paul Felder landed more according to the stats. So, I gave it to Felder, even though I thought that Dan Hooker won round 2. I gave it to Felder just to shut guys up, okay? I gave round 2 to Felder as a gift. I gave him round 2, even though I thought Felder won until they showed me the strikes. Then we get to round 3. Dan Hooker outstruck Paul Felder, landed the better shots. Dan Hooker wins round 3. We're all in unanimous here. Round 4, Hooker loses. Felder wins round 4. That is the clearest round of the entire fight. Felder was landing big shots. He hurt Hooker a couple times. Not enough for a 10-8 because Hooker wasn't wobbly. He just got cracked and off balance and then came back around and he was fine and throwing back again. Landing big shots of his own. But Felder landed the better shots. Hurt Dan Hooker. Shocked him. I wouldn't say hurt. I'd say shocked him a couple times. But Dan Hooker was fine. He wasn't wobbly all over the place. 10-9 Paul Felder. Round 5. Even Stevens going into the last minute. What happens in the last minute? Felder lands a big shot. Hooker shoots a takedown and gets it. I don't care, and I've heard this argument being made. Felder was hurting him so bad that Hooker had to shoot a takedown. It doesn't matter. If he gets the takedown, he gets the takedown, and that big shot doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't matter if he hurt him, and Hooker decided to go for a takedown based on the punches. That doesn't mean anything. All it counts as is that Felder landed 1 shot, according to the judges' scorecards, and then Hooker shot underneath it, took the takedown, double-legged him, slammed him on the ground, and held top position for about 50 seconds or 30 to 50 seconds, somewhere in that time frame. Felder gets back up. Hooker lands good knees to defy until the end of the round. Hooker wins round 5, round 1, and round 3. Maybe round 2, but I'm giving you that. What is this notion that Felder won that fight? I actually have no idea what's going on. The question is round 5. We know that. We know that the question is round 5. The question is 1 and 3 to Dan Hooker, guaranteed. We know that. 2 and 4 for Paul Felder. 2 I can give you. It was close. Could have gone either way. I give you it. There was a moment where Dan Hooker had his back, but I understand. He didn't do a lot of damage from that position, so that's an argument that can be made. I'll give round 2 to Paul Felder. He landed more shots. Round 4, Dan Hooker outstruck Paul Felder. No. Round 3, Dan Hooker outstruck Paul Felder. 2-1. Round 4, Paul Felder won. Up on strikes, landed the bigger shots. Clearest round of the fight. Still not a 10-8, so 10-9. 2-2. Going into the 5th. Felder is up by 2 strikes. Come the end of the round. Dan Hooker shoots a takedown after getting tagged with a shot. Gets the takedown, which narrows up that gap. Then proceeds to land strikes in full guard. Move to half guard. Get a position there. Felder even gets almost back up at one point and Hooker drags him back into position. More control time for about 30 to 45 seconds. Paul Felder gets back up. Dan Hooker lands knees to defy. This round is over. Hooker wins round 5. I don't understand the stupidity of people right now. They are literally Darren Till, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in it. They have got a narrative in their mind that the hometown guy is going to get gifted a decision, which I don't blame you for having that narrative. But you need to understand that it's there in your brain. The subconscious bias, because a guy is fighting in his hometown, is in your brain. And I know you dumb fucks can't see it, because you already stacked the odds against Paul Felder. There is no hometown advantage in MMA. There are some bad decisions that happen in people's hometowns. I understand that. This was not the case. Hooker just won. Okay, same thing with Darren Till. Close fight, Darren Till just won. If the Darren Till Wonderboy fight happened in America and the same decision was called, people would be fine with it. If this fight happened in America and the same decision was called, people would be fine with it. You're creating your own narrative to stack all the chips against Felder, and you think he lost because of that. There is no right way in your mind. And this isn't even a matter of watching the fight, because they were showing the strike numbers after every single round, which I actually quite like. And every single round, it showed us the winner because there was no grappling. If you want to count grappling, Dan Hooker won every clinch exchange there was. Outmuscled Paul Felder in every single clinch. But let's ignore that part of the fight, because that doesn't mean anything. So let's move away from that. I'm giving you an entire fucking realm of a fight, and I'm taking it off the table. No clinch control, even in close rounds. We're going to ignore clinch control whatsoever. We're not going to count anything unless it was a full-blown takedown. Take it off the table. Dan Hooker won round 1, landed more strikes. Felder landed round 2, landed more strikes. Hooker won round 3, landed more strikes. Felder 4, landed more strikes. Dan Hooker 5, they were even on strikes. Felder was up by 1 or 2. Hooker shoots a double leg and gets it in the 5th round. Is on top, lands good shots in the position. Felder tries to reverse it. Dan Hooker passes to half guard. This isn't just a get down and hold down. This is a get down, and now you have passed position to half guard. Then he's in half guard with Paul Felder. Felder manages to get back up, where Dan Hooker pushes him against the cage and lands 3 or 4 knees to the thigh. Dan Hooker wins. I don't care what people are saying. It's not just because I picked Dan Hooker, which is another thing that people keep bringing up, which immediately shows that they've lost. It's retarded. And it's not a draw either. Because I don't understand why people don't get this. People say a draw so often. There are no fucking draws if every round is a 10-9. People don't give out draw rounds. It can happen. It has never happened. I urge you to find me a single time when a draw round has ever been given out, and you will not be able to count them on one hand in the entire of UFC history. I guarantee you that. There will always be a 10-9. Dan Hooker won 2 of the first 4. Felder won 2 of the first 4. Dan Hooker wins 5 because he got top position after a double leg takedown in the 5th round. What is the question of robbery? I really don't understand. Does Paul Felder win a clearer round in round 4? Yes. Guess what? That's 1 round of a fight. People also make the argument of this, and I'm so glad I remembered. People make the argument, look at the strikes, dude. Okay. Those strikes were segmented up into 5 different rounds. They are not scored as a whole. So that statistic is fucking retarded to even have it scored as a whole. They are scored within a limited number of rounds, and they are segmented among 5. Felder, when he ran round 4, won it by a big margin. Not enough for a 10-8 round, but he won round 4 by a clear margin. Still a 10-9. That may add to his total strikes, but that does not change the fact that this is a round-based system. Because if you want to talk about who won on most strikes, let's talk about John Jones, Dominic Reyes. Let's talk about that, and we'll go back. Because I feel like the same people that are picking Felder to win are the same people that pick John Jones to win. They're those kind of retards, but there seems to be more of them, which is crazy to me. People started bringing up cage control, which is how you know you've lost an argument. If you bring up cage control and the fight isn't fucking even on strikes, or one guy's up by 1 strike, like Darren Till versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, if you bring up cage control in that type of fight, you're retarded. The fight was scored. Everyone was given their strikes per round. Felder won 3 and 5. Hooker won 3 and 5. Felder 2 and 4. There should be no argument about a robbery. I understand it was a close fight. I understand it was a split decision. It definitely should have gone to Dan Hooker. And I'm going to get backlash. I'm going to get dislikes. Don't care. Definitely should have gone to Dan Hooker. And I know for a fact that Dan Hardy gave the first round to Paul Felder. Joe Rogan also gave that first round to Paul Felder. There is a commentary bias I do not understand, and this is again back on my argument about why fighters should not work on the desk ever. They are the most biased group of people. They have allegiances with half of the roster. They have enemies of half of the roster. Why is that allowed? That little agreement there. If you gave, listen, Dan Hardy had Felder win in round 1. If anyone gave Felder 1, 3, or 5, you don't know what sport you're watching. You're a Felder fan, I get it. Your only argument for a victory for Felder is that he won round 4 10-8. That's your only argument. I'm giving you round 2, even though I still thought that was a close round that could go either way. I'm giving you round 2. Your only argument is that 10-8 round 4, and that would be a draw. And it wasn't a 10-8 round 4, and I assume that's why some people are calling it a draw, because they think the round 4 was a 10-8. Hooker was never dropped. He was always throwing back. Did he get stung a couple times and rocked? That's what happens when you get punched in the face. Not a 10-8 round. Not a 10-8 round by any means. Hooker never dropped. At all. He took some big shots. He gave them back. Not in high enough numbers, but he gave them back. Never a 10-8. There was no moment where Hooker looked like he could be finished. He got hit with some shots that staggered him, recovered, back to the jab, back to the leg kick. People were retarded. 1-3-5, Hooker. 2-4, Felder. 3-2, Hooker. Let's talk about the actual fight. Good fight, man. Really good fight. I think both of them, it should have been easier for Hooker if he's going to go on to be world champion. It should have been easier for both of them if they were going to do what they wanted to and prove a point. But that should not have gone to Felder. But let's talk about the fight and the aftermath. The whole card was good, but let's not talk about the whole card. I've got a whole card breakdown to talk about with that. But for Dan Hooker, he won the fight, man. He really did. And afterwards, he had, I don't know what he said, but it was very short on the microphone. I guess he addressed the New Zealand crowd. Then he gave it to Paul Felder, who wants to retire. I understand why Paul Felder wants to retire. He's 30-something years old, 34, 35. He's got a kid. He's in wars every single time he goes out there. He may not be getting KO'd, but every time Felder goes out there, it's a war. Okay, he's had plenty of wars in his career. Okay, he's still got a commentary job, which is only going to boost in stock right now because, you know, he's now more well-known than ever. This is his first main event in the UFC. Retire, man. There's no point you fucking scavenging back up the ladder. Don't do it. Don't fall into the trap of every other guy. You had a war. You went out on a good note. You took anyone, any player, any place, any time. Go out on top, even though this was a loss. Go out on top with people even being stupid enough to call it a robbery. Have that impression on the fans' minds if they're stupid enough. And retire. There's no need for you to continue. You're just going to have to fight 3 more times to even get back into the conversation of a title shot. It's not worth it. By the time you fight 3 more times, you'll be 37 years old. You'll be 3 times more damaged if you win all of them. Retire now. Get out. Just leave. Because who knows? Kevin Lee could come up next and just clip you the right way. Islam Makhachev should come up next and just clip you the right way. Anyone could come up next and just tag you that right way. And now you're KO'd. And who knows, that could be the end of your commentary career. We saw what happened to Brendan Schaub when he tries to speak after being KO'd. Doesn't work out too well. Dan Hooker won. Stop talking nonsense. He won the fight. Very good performance from both guys. The jab of Dan Hooker is something to fucking marvel at. I swear to God, I've never seen a jab so clean in a very long time. Maybe it's because the rest of the card wasn't the most talent stacked, but there were some good fights. But Dan Hooker won. The jab was so clean. Let's talk about that for a second. The jab. Felder was landing some good bombs, but they were missing a lot of the time. And I feel like that was a lot of... I feel like some of the total strikes were miscounted, honestly. Because there were a lot of shots that Felder was throwing that weren't quite landing. And I think that the commentary really played a factor in the way people saw this fight. Because when I watch fights, I watch them on silent because I've got a stream to do. And I can't play the fight noise, otherwise it will play on stream and I'll get copyright striked. Clear win for Dan Hooker when I sat there and counted strikes. Clear win. Good job. 1, 3, and 5. Stop talking about robbery. You're all dumb as fuck. Click that button there. Goodbye. See you later.